Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Josh and Jason Monday Christian and Conspiracy Podcast Show. I'm your host, Josh Monday. If you don't know me, I'm a Christian rapper, devoted husband, and father. I'd like to introduce you to my co-host. He's a Christian, devoted husband, and father. What's up, Jason?
Hey, what's going on, guys? Just want to give a shout out to my mom. I just want to say hi to her and say hope she's doing all right. And my sister, if she's ever listens to this, or any of my friends, just want to say hi. God bless you. Hope you guys, everyone's doing good.
Yes. Yes. Hi, Mom. How you doing? I know you always listen every episode. We love you. Renee, if you listen, definitely I love you. And all the friends Jason are talking about, we love you. So we have a returning guest he's on Mount Crushmore every single episode. Gary Wayne. Everybody check out his book, The Genesis 6 Conspiracy. I bought it as soon as I knew it was available, and how you doing, Gary Wayne?
I am doing excellent and so happy to be back with you today and looking forward to another riveting conversation, I hope, and hopefully the audience is going to connect a few more dots and get a little more curiosity and dig into things, because I think we're in that period of time where we ought to start figuring things out, because it's going to get very, very blurry.
Yes, very much so. So today we're going to be talking about the Jesuits, guys. Jesuits, which is like, to some people, it's a mystery. Some people just don't know. And I think Gary Wayne, I've listened. That's how I actually listened to you first, was on the Fourth Watch, when you did a Jesuit episode, and I was like, wow, I'm blown away by this gentleman's knowledge. And that was 4 years ago, so I can imagine the amount of stuff that you know now. So I'm going to give the floor to you, Gary. I do have some questions for you as we go, and I know you already know your stuff. So
yeah, so feel free to jump in at any point in time, because it's a big story. And there's going to be, I'm sure, going to be some surprising things that we talk about, and some questions that the audience is going to want to know about. And if there's a chat room there that you're getting questions, certainly feel free to, pop in the audience questions. So I think the Jesuits is one of those really interesting stories that needs to be learned. And for people who aren't familiar with my book, I did not put the Jesuits into the book, and I didn't include them for a reason, because it's a very divisive issue. It's a fairly large issue, and I didn't want to distract from the overall theme. Yeah. But what I did do is I put in all of the basis for the building into who creates the Jesuit orders. And so we need to understand that sort of from that kind of beginning. And I promise, for people who want information on the Jesuits, is that it will be in the sequel. I will put a section in there. I won't do like a whole book on Jesuits, but I'll connect it in terms of how it connects from prehistory to prophecy for the new book that's going to be coming out.
Can't wait.
So we need to understand that the Jesuits are a Masonic organization. And when I'm talking about Masonic, it's a little bit more from an ancient basis, even though they're a more recent contemporary organization like the Illuminati or like the Freemasons or like the Rosicrucians, but kind of sort of similar to that. One of those incredibly important organizations that are created after the fall of the Knights Templar, who are the modern wedge to all of the secret societies we understand today. And it was a very centralized organizational structure. I mean, they were the Royal Masons from ancient times. They were founded by royal bloodlines, and the ones that weren't physically, notably as being the sons of kings, as in de Paon and de Bouillon and Anjou from the Lorraine region, which is another interesting name as you come down with the double cross of Lorraine and the Habsburg Lorraine dynasty and the King of Jerusalem title that passes on through them, which is another show in itself. But there were two Cistercian monks, or Benedictine monks, as they're also known. So we need to understand that the Templars were a organization that had a Christian veneer, and underneath they were like Cathars and Albigensians and Gnostics as we would understand them today.
Yeah.
And so were the Gnostic orders that had molded into Roman Catholicism. So whether or not you're talking about, as I mentioned, the Cistercians and the Benedictines or the Augustines, or you name the order that's in there, and even the more recent one that was created in the 1930s, Opus Dei, that's actually known in the cult as, Masonic Freemasonry for the Roman Catholic Church, right? It's actually is known as Masonic Freemasonry, or Catholic Freemasonry, I should say. And so,
didn't the Catholics used to be forbidden from joining the Freemasons at one point?
They were, and you would be excommunicated.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to understand that.
Yeah, it totally makes sense.
And so when you have that Albigensian crusade, which the Templars were part of, right? Part of that religion at the core. That was at a time when the Gnostic religions were teetering at getting complete control and wiping out the Roman Catholic Church. So you can't have two primacy sort of religions that are sort of mortal enemies. One's going to win, one's going to lose. And so it could have just as easily gone the other way.
Yes.
But it didn't. And so when we look at understanding the Gnostic sort of concept, this is going to be very important when we get into talking about the Jesuits, but a little bit of more sort of setting the table in terms of who the Jesuits are. The monastic orders are a branch of the Essenes. And a lot of people are going to say, well, wait a minute. Essenes are, these guys are from the Dead Sea Scrolls and they're very prophetic and they're all of these good guys. Well, they're not. So they're polytheists. They worship fallen angels. I have a great document on this. I give you all of the historians on it and tell you about who they were. I give you the biblical references so you understand who they are. And they were very much an ascetic monastic order. The first monastic ascetic order in the West that was a model and built upon the Eastern monastic orders, like in India, right? Like in the Buddhist temples and stuff. And so this is the organization that Freemasonry also takes much of their organizational structure and religion back to. This is a very, very, they have the same type of hand signals, the same gods, and you have ascetic rituals in Masonic rituals and organizations in the secret societies. So this is the group that is going to be how the monastic orders are going to be formed within the Catholic Church. And at the time of the homogenization of Mithraism and Sol Invictus, and probably some Egyptian religions, and maybe a few other spices put in there from polytheism into Constantine's statewide religion, which became known as Christianity, only the Roman form of Christianity.
Yes.
There's still this primacy going on. And even though they're doing things that are going to pacify the masses, it's not going to pacify the leaders of the religion. And so they have to go underground.
Yeah.
So what they do is they mold themselves into first the Roman builders guilds. And they are going to make themselves important, and they're going to build all of the churches, whether it's in the old Romanesque style or whether or not it's in the Gothic cathedral style that comes back from the Templars after excavating at the Temple of Jerusalem. And so as we look at this now, they've got these Gnostic orders that are molded in, and then they start to form ascetic monastic orders that, and there's almost like an endless list of them. But the Benedictines and the Cistercians become the most important ones, because Saint Benedict, who's going to be the leader of the Benedictines at the time of the formation of the Templars, he's a Cistercian monk. And he's a Gnostic, and he's the second most important person in the Templars at that time. He writes their constitution. And He does a letter and an argument at the Council of Troy that gets the papal bull in 1128, right? And so he's also a relative of several of the founding members of the Knights Templar.
Wow. Okay.
And he's the one who introduces the Red Cross from the ancient order of the Red Cross into the Knights Templar.
Okay.
And so you see this sort of wedding of its building blocks as to what's later going to form into the Jesuits later. Now, the thing you need to remember about the Templars before we move into the Jesuits is that their goal was that they had several agendas within the church. One was to keep the message of the bloodlines and keep that secret and keep that protected.
Mhm.
Another thing that they did was to develop the knowledge that they brought back out of Jerusalem. But they're in their constitution that they wrote and written down according to the monk of Rosicrucian. And there's a great document on this, and if people want it, I can send it to you. I've got it on a PDF. I also have a 3-part series on the Jesuits that'll walk you through some of the details I just won't have time to get into on the minutiae on some of the dates and some of the organizations, because there's a lot in the formation. But the point of the matter here is that they were to create as their primary goal the New Babylon within the Roman Church, to prepare within the church to have that Gnostic religion come to a primacy, even though it was there for 600 years before, 700 years before. They wanted complete control all of the time if they could do it, but to have this universal Gnostic, what I call global Gnosticism, set for end time Babylon and the world government, which were the Templars' dreams. So now that, go ahead.
I feel like it feels like they infiltrate, they subvert, they go through, and what you're saying is that when they start getting more that's the stuff I was trying to get to, where how do they learn this stuff to where they, instead of going through so much wars, because that was all the wars that are going on over Catholicism and Christianity back in and trying to push that. The Romans, how did they learn to do that so secretly and keep their bloodlines going? And it's just crazy how they do that and secretly, and they play both sides, and they have all these just plans 12 moves ahead. It's like playing chess with, I'm like a kid and they're playing chess like they're Bobby Fischer, and it's like weird. They're thinking 30 moves ahead, and any move that they make benefits them completely. It doesn't matter if it's money, religion, because religion is in the economic game as well.
Yep.
That's why they push towards that, because if you own the government and the religion, you have that both locked down. You're making a lot of money.
Yes. And so not only do they infiltrate with these monastic orders and actually get some Gnostic popes up there at times, they also reset up the ancient organizational structure, as you say, not only having the kingships and control of the army, but to get their bloodlines into the Catholic Church. And that's typically called the Black Nobility. It's the smaller Black Nobility, which is the same name that they'll use for the Rex Deus or Rex Deus, the kings of God, bloodlines of Greater Europe. But typically the Black Nobility is understood as the bloodlines that go back to Julius Caesar and to the original families who were, supplied all of the senators and were the educated elite, and who, and whose descendants later took over as Caesars, including Julius Caesar. And they take their bloodlines back to the original gods and their original Nephilim offspring, or Rephaim offspring after the flood. And it's the same thing. And so you get Borgia and Orsini, and there's a whole list of,
like the Colonna, I guess it's the Farnese, the Medici.
Well, the Medici is a little bit different. the Medici kind of marry in. They're
Okay.
they kind of take their bloodlines back to, and it may be partly Jewish, but it is also from Tyre, and as bankers coming out of Tyre and Phoenicia, and then they're going to intermarry, and they come in, after, let's say 1100 or so AD, and become the banking arm to the Roman Catholic Church, which is, once you reach that, you're at the pinnacle of power and wealth, which is going to be another key position for the Jesuits. So it's important to understand all of that.
Yeah.
And so they've had
more than Orsini, Colonna. Is that more than more like the Orsini and then Colonna family? Is that more?
Yep, that's specifically. And the Borgia you need to be really familiar with, because that name's going to come up as we talk more about the Jesuits. Yeah. So it's important. So as we move that sort of thought forward, we get an event in 1188, which is called the Cutting of the Elms. This is a year after, or I'm sorry, 1288. It's a year after Jerusalem has fallen. So you're getting sort of an internal dissatisfaction and split. And so the adepts, the Masonic royal families, the one who really control the Knights Templar at the core. You have, just like it's set up today, you have the adepts and you have the people below who aren't adepts. They maybe have the bloodlines, but until you're an adept, you don't know everything, right? You're fed a lot of BS like everybody else is, and because you're not ready to know the real truth. Yeah. And so you get a splitting of this organization up, where this organization that is called the Priory of Sion as well, which goes back to the original founders and the Priory of Sion. They crown the first king of Jerusalem, which is a member of the Anjou, and Baldwin the First and Baldwin the Second, as I recall on it. And they carry that title down, that went with families down through history, like the Lorraine dynasties that we were talking about from Anjou, and into the Habsburg dynasty. You get the Habsburg Lorraine, they carry the King of Jerusalem title. Today it's with King Philip of Spain, who inherited it from his father, Juan Carlos, who got it through his intermarriage and bloodlines through the Habsburg Lorraine dynasty. So it's this King of Jerusalem title, this Antichrist title, that bloodline is carrying. But again, that's another rabbit hole. So, but what happens, and I've got documents on the Priory of Sion that you've got historical records. Don't let people say that it isn't. I can provide them if people want them. And the King of Jerusalem was crowned in a small priory in the Rock of Sion in 1118. Wow. And that's, part of where that whole name comes from, the Priory of Sion, and is kind of like the first of those grand masters after de Bouillon. And so if we start to understand that, then we know that we understand why there wasn't a lot of support for the fall of the Knights Templar in 1307. And that's when the central organization, the banking that they also had, because they were, for the most part, the bankers for the Vatican that the Medicis would inherit after the fall.
Okay.
Right?
The fall of the Knights Templar, right?
Right. And so banking is going to be one of the things that they're going to want to replace down the road. And they're going to replace it with the Rothschilds outside the Vatican. And then the Jesuits are going to come into play once they reset up the Jesuits. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes. And the Knights Templar, they are taken down in 1307. So they're going to decentralize, so they can't take the banking, the education that's within the church, and the whole sort of, because Protestantism hasn't come about yet, the whole Christian world. And the military and all aspects of things that they had controlled. So they're going to replace them with several other organizations. One of them is going to be the Rothschilds for the banking outside the church. Another one is going to be the Illuminati, who are focused on destroying Christianity and world government. Again, a Templar goal. You've got the Rosicrucians, who we'll come back to in a second. You've got Freemasonry, which is mostly, an introductory organization at the bottom where you get to be first level of adept, third degree in the old system, 33rd degree in the Scottish Rite, and look after media at times, although some people say that's Illuminati, but specifically the army and government intervention is where they're working all of the time. And you've also got the Royal Society that looks after education outside the church and the development of the sciences, and that was formed by the Rosicrucians and the Freemasons. And of course you have the Rosicrucians. And this rosy red cross order that Saint Benedict had given the Templars, they're going to keep that, and they're going to come out as the Rosy Cross as an underground society after 1288, and again, not there for, or is it might be 1188, it might have that century mixed up. Sorry about that.
I was going to say something too. You're saying all these, the Rothschilds and all these different families mixed together. So I feel like this is why the Catholics, they have the yarmulkes as well. They have the fish hats, because I know that goes back to and everything else. And I feel like they took a whole bunch of different religions and mixed them all together.
They did
the best parts of everything, and they don't worship anything. They just basically they just do traditions, and that's it.
Right.
They kick the word of God out of the house. And it trips me out how they're so successful.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, no one sees it. It's like, man, that is the devil's side of the religion. You can see it. Like they give the homage to the Jewish side, to the Catholic side, or the Christian side, and they give homage to Babylonian side.
So you get the the baby Jesus and Mary depiction as Isis and Horus, as it comes out of Egyptian. You get out of Mithraism things like December 25th, which is the birth date of Mithra. It's also the festival of Sol Invictus, starting on the 21st. So you get all sorts of things. You get Easter that is coming in and actually called Easter, which goes back to Ishtar. And like you say, you get those hats that go back to Sumerian religions. And understand that Mithraism roots back to Zoroastrianism, which is the religion of Persia, right, and the Aryans and of Sumeria. So as you take that back, that's why you start to see a lot of that imagery sort of come into the church. And so we need to keep that in mind, that there's a lot of that idolatry stuff that came in, and change of the Sabbath and everything else that went along with it, to the Sunday, of course, right? As opposed to Saturday, which it was supposed to be. And so after the fall of the Knights Templar, you get an organization that's going to pop up alongside of Freemasonry in Scotland. And it's going to be the first Rosy Cross order that becomes visible. And these are made up of the Knights Templar who escaped to Scotland at that time, because Bruce has been excommunicated for killing his rival in a Catholic church. And so he's offering them protection as being excommunicated. And with the St. Clairs, who are the St. Clairs, who was a battle partner of Hugh de Payan, as that descendancy goes back, ancestry goes back at the time of the Knights Templars forming. These are the St. Clairs that is transliterated as the St. Clairs into Scotland, and they're going to form Freemasonry. And then the Bruce is going to set up this Rosy Cross order, especially for the adepts of those Knights Templar. And you get the first sort of formalized Rosy Cross order that forms in, say, 1323. So within 20 years of the fall of the Templars, and of course they're going to be instrumental in Scotland getting their independence and winning the war at Bannockburn, when the Knights Templar charged the field at the end of the day, that the fake history says we're servants with wooden spoons and stuff, just charging the field. It's not even a good cover story. And so this is important to understand, because at this point in time, starting in about 1317, 10 years after the fall of the Knights Templar, 33, which is a key number in the hierarchy of secret societies, with the Council of 33, and of course the 33rd degree of the Scottish Rite. 33 invisible ones. Understanding invisible ones is a similar name and with a similar type of meaning for the other name for the Royal Society, which is the Invisible College, because it was created by the invisible ones, the Rosicrucians. Wow. Right? Okay. And so these 33 invisible ones are going to go down and talk with the Pope, and they're going to try and reinstate the Templar order within the church, because they want to get influence back in, because they're totally shut out in terms of the power that they had before. And so the Pope says that he'll do this, but he's going to put all of his own people on who's running the organization, and not any of the 33.
Which Pope is this year?
I have to double check that name. I don't have it off the top of my head right now.
I was trying to remember too, because I remember these times
in the 1300s.
Yeah, 1317. So just Google it. Wow. Yeah.
Man, I know. It's just like, man.
Yeah. It's okay.
Yeah. So
okay, keep going. We're barely scratching the surface.
Just scratching the surface. I usually have those names on the tip of my hands, but
okay, it's okay.
But anyways, so 1317 is when this happens. Oh, and by the way, it is 1288 when you have the cutting of the Elms. So not that long or much longer until the Templars are destroyed in 1307. So this deal doesn't happen. And so the invisible ones, they have to go underground. Of course, these are royal masons. These are sons of kings. These are the ones who are leading, Gnostic Europe. And so they're going to continue with this Rosicrucian order. And it's going to, at a point in time, evolve into a different order, because the 33 is going to go up the ladder. They're going to have more families come along. So they're going to have the committee of 300 families below the 33. Yeah. And of course, you have the 13 families above the 33. And then you're going to have the Rosicrucians, which is 50% pure blood at the top, 50% of ones that have come up through the ranks through Freemasonry, Rosicrucian, and Illuminati, with Illuminati being below the Rosicrucians. And so they're going to look for an opportunity then to get back into the Catholic Church in a way where they can have more control. And understand they've still got control over the Knights of St. John, which is important to understand, but they have a different agenda than they want for the Templars. And the Knights of St. John will have set up in Switzerland in the 1100s, and they have the White Cross, which is why the Swiss have the White Cross on their flag, and they actually start some banking routes there. And the money from the Knights Templar goes to Switzerland.
Wow.
Okay, so a lot of it, not all, but a lot of it does.
That's why their bank is like that, where it's like the Swiss bank where everybody can put money in. It's kind of like the Vatican bank. It's the same type of deal, right? Where you can, hide your money basically. Or they're just going to keep. I can't remember what it's called. There's a certain word for it.
Under it.
Yes, you could. That's one way of putting it.
Keep them in the islands.
So.
Caymans, that's what it is. You keep your money in the Caymans, so you don't get tax evasion.
So in 1307, the King of France, or the King of Spain, I'm sorry, what he does is he forms an order called the Montesso Order, which is again a royal Masonic order, and that's formed to seize the assets of the Templars in Spain. And it's going to happen in a similar way in Portugal and in some other locations, because they don't want the Roman Church to get it. Now, this is an important order to remember in the formation of the Jesuits. And this is 1307. And so in about 1523, you have Ignatius of Loyola come onto the scene. and he's getting visions of Mary, and he's being put on a mission by this vision of the Mother Mary, who is saying that you're going to be a soldier of Christ and that you are going to do your work within the church to take it back to what it's supposed to be, to bring about this new Babylon.
So,
right.
Quick question. So he was also part of a secret society before he made the Jesuits. They were called the Alumbrados. Have you heard of that?
I have.
Yeah. So he did have some mysticism and some secret society influence before he started the Jesuits, right?
Significant amount of that. And so understand that, the whole group of original founders of the Jesuits were educated in the university, I think in Bibliothèque in Paris, and they were they formed that, were part of that secret society then, and they were studying the 7 liberal arts, but taking it to a completely different level. And so they're going to walk out of their education and they're going to start the Jesuit order, and they're going to view the complete Bible and biblical doctrine through the 7 liberal arts, the 7 sacred sciences that were created by Enoch, son of Cain, to do 4 things. 1 is to lead people away from God. 2 is to not give God credit for anything. 3 is to degrade God. 4 is to honor their pantheon of gods. And so this is how they're going to interpret everything that's in the Bible in their order. And they're going to create a mystical society within the order. And it's going to have your adepts, it's going to have your lower level ones. You've got that class society, only the adepts know the true belief systems, but anyways, I get ahead of myself in terms of where we are. And this fledgling society is going to be helped out by a fellow who has the last name Borgia.
Okay.
Who is the Grand Master of the Montesso Order. And this is of the bloodline of the Borgia of the popes. And there's been 2 or 3 Borgia popes before that. And he is established in that order by the King of Spain. And so he's going to fund, and they're going to be sponsoring, along with the King of Spain, the Jesuit order. And so by 1537, they're applying for an official papal bull, and they're going to get the Jesuit order established. And this Jesuit order is what they call the new Templars within their organization, in terms of who they base themselves off to be,
finally
that
got back,
are replacing the old Templars, right?
They finally got back into the church, basically. They're like,
right,
now we're finally back in. Okay, go ahead.
And they initially get control over all education, and then they get control over the seminary schools. And then by 1570, they are taking over the bank in Rome. Wow. And it's all got to do with the working of the King of Spain to bankrupt Rome to get control of the bank. And then they're going to move that over to Switzerland, right? So that it's all now everything except for the Rothschilds bank at that time, which is the banking outside of the church. Of course, they're located there now too. So you've got them all in Switzerland, and they're all controlled by the same people. But by 1570, when all of this happens, guess who becomes the 3rd Grand Master of the Jesuits? Borgia does.
Oh, okay.
So now they've got complete control over all of this, just like the Templars did. And they wreaked havoc in a significant way all throughout their history. They were on the edge of exploration and promoters of going into the New World. They were controlling all the things that they found, and being in absolute control of the bank and everything all the way through. And they're being guided through a lot of Mary apparitions that are also part of this whole cult, which is a big part of it today. But unfortunately, they get taken down because they get too much control, and they start to rebel against the Masonic bloodlines, the royal bloodlines. And so, but by the 1880s, they're back in power again.
So 1773 is when they were abolished. That's what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yep.
So then we got 1776, the Illuminati starts, right? So Adam Weishaupt, the Bavarian Illuminati starts. Do you believe that that was like the Jesuits just reforming into the Illuminati? Because I know he was Jesuit. He went to a Jesuit school. His dad was actually a professor there. Do you believe that they just got abolished and then they just restarted under this Illuminati name?
No, I think the Illuminati has its own history.
Okay,
It
so
starts to be, and has their own goals. And actually go back to the 1500s, and it begins with Galileo, and then it moves out over into Germany, and then forward from there.
There were some rumors of that. That's why I was trying to.
Well, a lot of people think that the Jesuits control Freemasonry. Yes. And there is an interaction between the organizations, and as Freemasonry and their history indicates, is that in the beginning, after the creation of the Jesuits, they were working together once Borgia had taken over, but the Jesuits were trying to become too powerful within the Masonic organizations, and they had their own specific agenda they were assigned, because they answer up the secret society role into the Committee of 300 as we would understand it today, and into the Italian bloodlines are there, and then into the 33 and into the 13 above that, right?
Yeah.
And so they were expelled from Freemasonry and the Illuminati at that time, because they needed to be free to do their agendas and not to be dominated by the Jesuits. So they had to do a split. So they were working together, but there was kind of like an internal control battle, and they split away. And that's because each of those groups have their own agenda, right? Yeah. To prepare for the end time, what they need to work on. So these are the New Templars that were established by the Rosicrucians, which are that organizational structure that has 50% free purebloods at the top that connect into the Committee of 300 above. And you've got the Jesuits intersecting like a branch into it, into those Black nobility families, which is why it's important to understand those Black nobility families, and that they've got control of all of the Catholic banking even to this day. And then when they were reformed, there was all of these subsequent Mary apparitions that will come along afterwards.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Like different. Yeah. Okay. So 1814, the Jesuits were reestablished, right? Is that what you were talking about?
Yeah.
Like okay, cool. So now we're up to 1814. Okay. So Pope is the seventh, guys. If you guys don't know who reestablished the Jesuits, 1814.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you read the Bible, Mary didn't visit anybody. Mary never visited anybody. She just ominous. She can't travel through time. She would be very, I think if she was alive today, she'd be ashamed that they do this to her.
Well, yeah, they would be. This is not Mary, so everybody needs to know that it's probably a demonic spirit and a mother goddess sort of individuals. So by the 1880s, the Jesuits are going to be, by papal bull, be reinstated to the full authority level that they had before.
Okay.
So they're reformed in 1814, but with very little power. They're just sort of reestablished, but and then shortly thereafter, you get the Mary apparitions that are going to be happening, that is going to work hand in hand with the Jesuit order, because they're basically being, instructed by Mary apparitions as well. And that it's a very important part of the Jesuit order. So when we look at the Fatima and the Lord's apparitions. This is kind of what I'm referring to. And as the Mary apparitions become more important to the Catholic Church, the more powerful the Jesuits even become. And then by the late 60s, they start to adopt all of this social masonry policy that is external, which they've always had from before. And then today you have a Jesuit Pope who has fully recognized the apparitions, well, not all of the apparitions, but a lot of the apparitions of Mary that took place in Medjugorje, that initiated 6 children who were seeing the apparition, and she taught them and has prepared them and has set a certain date for when they are going to come out.
My
going to predict.
My wife and her father talk about this a lot. They always bring this up, and then because they're Catholic, and they always, I'm like, that's not real. It's just like, yes, it is. It's the Fatima, all this stuff. I'm like, no.
Oh yeah, yeah, and but and understand that I think we might want to anticipate that these 6 are going to return. They are going to make in their commission 10 apocalyptic prophecies, starting one and then another. And after each one comes to pass, they're going to be saying, if you do not, just as they say before, if you do not convert to the one true religion, you're going to be destroyed from the face of the earth. So these false prophets are going to be coming out. These are going to be contrived apocalyptic events, which is how they can do it. And which is, I think, the sorrows that are talked about in Matthew 24, the beginning of sorrows, the birth pangs, are all contrived.
Yeah.
Of course, you can do false flags. You can make they can make it happen, and they can say it's going to happen and then make it happen. They can make earthquakes. They can make tornadoes. They can make the weather change right now. It's crazy, but
when America started, when they started opening up the borders back in the 1776, like when the borders were basically, we accepted everybody here. They saw a chance. Hey, look, we can flood our Roman Catholic. Just get as many Roman Catholics over there. Get Irish Catholics. Get them flood it, because they knew that they vote. If you vote, you could change laws very easily by using, and that's the thing, that's the tactics I was thinking about. I'm like, wow, how the things they teach down the lines on how to control a nation, control people, keep your people always up here, and them and the other lower class people always down here. It's a weird battle, because I don't think we're meant for this. I don't think you, Gary, or Josh, or anybody as a true human being is meant to be working a 9 to 5 and pushing your, and constantly listening to the media telling you that you need to be working and buying stuff to survive. And when it's all right there, it's crazy to me how they control everything.
Yeah, they do. They continually to reimpose their class system of the 4 classes, and it's an organizational structure that's all around the world. And we're not known as the slave class today, but that's how they'd like to get us right back to, and they're continuing to always try and do it. So what's happened in the West is help sort of bring things along to get to a point where they want to get it to, but they're going to have to get rid of the middle class, because
that's what I was about to say.
Sure. And it's important to understand as well, when we talk about the Jesuits, is that they have control today over the Knights of St. John as well, which has basically nation status and observer status at the UN, and is made up of all at the top levels, sons of kings and princes. Now, that's what it takes to be in there. And they were kind of independent until Francis took over. And a couple of years ago, he got control of both of those. Wow. And so their job is to make Catholicism the true universal religion, as Catholicism means universal. They want that as the new Babylon. And so they're working hard to cross over into the World Council of Churches to unite Christianity. They're working with the Abraham covenants to to bring about the bringing back of Judaism and Islam and Roman Catholicism into this sort of greater monotheistic. And they're going to continue to change doctrine in a way that's not Christian in any sort of manner, and look for a continued march towards the allegorical interpretation, which is the mystical. Go ahead.
It's like it's more of a works based. It's not like we're saved by faith through grace, not by works, so that no man shall boast. But it's like almost like a works based religion, you know. So the more works you do, you can buy yourself out of purgatory. Just a whole bunch of stuff that's
you have to dismiss and degrade faith and replace it with reason and works, and that's their belief, is reason over faith. And it's done through the lens of polytheism, through the lens of Gnosticism, through the lens of the seven sacred sciences, and that they'll have to redefine everything in the Bible as allegorical, and to understand it, you need to be an adept. And so they're going to de-deify Jesus. They're going to bring out false evidence. They're going to position Jesus as being a prophet, but a mortal prophet. And they need to do this because they believe, we'll see whether they actually get it done. I think, you can make a good case. There's going to be rivals for who's going to bring about this universal religion, but this is certainly their aspect, their plan that they've been planning for millennia, and to set up Rome as Babylon City. Right?
Yes. That's interesting. So that's the one world government, or the one world religion that's in the Bible, right? In Revelation, basically, right? They're trying to become that religion, right? The universal religion for everybody to come to.
Yes. And that this will be the religion that of their false prophets and their prophets of doom are going to have people to convert. And if you have terrific catastrophes, you can get people to convert, and people will start to listen to what they're saying and saying, hey, people have screwed up all the knowledge in the world, all of the religions in the world. It's all one religion. And it's going to go back to that ancient Enochian mysticism that the Essenes reveled in. And so when they revered Enoch, it wasn't Enoch son of Seth, it was Enoch son of Cain.
So what the people don't know is they have the seven sacred sciences, all this mysticism, all this secret society knowledge, and they're trying to bring in the religion knowledge. But the people that are not woke to all this stuff, to the Jesuits and all this, they don't know about that part. They just know about the Catholic part. Right?
They're using Jesus Christ as the front and Mary as the front of all this. So they're using that religion of that true religion, or not religion, but because Jesus Christ was not a religion at all. But what I'm saying is that they're spreading it like a disease but using the names to represent false deities, which is where'd you learn this stuff? Man's not this. They're not this.
All from Nimrod, bro.
Come on, G. They're not this smart. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't just sit around and plan this stuff. So they're taught through down the lines, and it's not fair. They know that God exists. They know that He exists. Then they must know, because they're battling with Him every day.
Sure. Well, but you have to remember, in Gnosticism, they do recognize the God of the Bible, but they recognize him.
Bad guy.
They think, they call him the bad guy, and he's no more powerful than Satan.
Yes.
He's one of the angels that was created by Sophia that went rogue, right? Yeah. So that, it's part of that dualistic religion. You have good versus evil going on all of the time. And that's why they degrade God to just being another angel, and that he's a narcissist and says, went rogue and said, worship me, I'm the only one. And they're going, no, Sophia created 7 of us. And that's kind of where their belief system sort of
they say that, like,
goes to.
That God is like, doesn't have any parents, or our God that we worship doesn't have any parents, right? And he's just out there, like, putting us in a realm and not giving us any knowledge, doesn't want us to have any fun. That the way that they look at it is that Satan was the one that's like, hey, I want to give you the knowledge. I want to make you guys happy, like So they totally make it like Lucifer is the good god, and then our god that we worship is the bad god. So it's just
Yeah.
a
So the
total-
fall, yeah.
Oh,
So the
man.
fallen angels and the demons, they lie to the people on earth. They say you can win.
yeah,
And we can
Come
win
with
a
us.
realm on our own, just as
Yeah.
Satan was trying to do. So if you look at some of the movies like Doctor Strange really represents that allegory that we're talking about, that you got this
Oh, the
evil
Matrix.
dark lord of the universe, right?
yeah,
Which is to them is the God of the Bible. And
Yeah.
that all of these beings, the magi and all the interportaling and knowledge that they have, is trying to win not the war, but a treaty so that Earth can be this one separate place in all of the universe where it's not overseen and run by this dark lord of the universe that they call the God of the Bible. And that's what they've misled their people to believe. And so we need to understand that this end time religion, and you're talking about Nimrod.
yeah,
I mean, the Babylon religion that's talked about in Revelation goes back to the Greek word and the Hebrew word Babel, from which
Yeah.
Babylon derives from. This is the religion that Nimrod instituted as an archetypical antichrist figure at Babel, right? The
Yeah.
religion that crossed the flood, the Enochian mysticism that, according to the Gnostics and the Hermes, or the Gnostics and the secret societies, that Hermes found and gave to Nimrod. And it's designed to bring about an antichrist figure, which is what happens. And so it's a city. We need to understand it's a city. And it's an organization. It's a political organization because it rides the seven empires. It is a commercial entity
Mhm.
because it grows rich and wealthy, just as the merchants who are working with Babylon. So it's probably going to take a tribute or a percentage of every electronic transfer that's going to take place. And it's going to set up the beast system for the Antichrist. And of course, it's a universal religion who sits on many waters.
Yeah.
That's also talked about. And when you get into the words mystery Babylon, mysterion, or all of the allegories of prostitution and harlots and adultery, those are all allegories out of the Old Testament about the polytheist religions and the daughters of Babylon. So this is that new Babylon that they're going to try and establish on the seven hills. And there's seven kings, and the seven kings are the seven past empires. But not either or, as some people say. It says seven hills and seven kings is what it represents. And so that's going to be on the seven hills of ancient Rome. And what's interesting is one of those hills is Palatine Hill.
Mhm.
And there's another hill that's outside the seven that's called Vatican Hill. And the Palatine Mountain had a temple of the Sibylline mysticism and the oracles, and Vatican Hill had another temple of that part of polytheism that was a branch of the Palatine Hill. So you expect that it's going to be right within that old city of Rome created by Romulus and Remus, two Nephilim or Rephaim type characters after the flood, and that it's going to be within that sort of smaller area because the Vatican Hill is outside those old city walls.
Robbie, didn't they suck off the wolf or something like that? Wasn't that?
Yeah.
Yeah, they were like sucking out the tit of the wolf. Yeah, they're like twin brothers. That's crazy. Man, I haven't heard that story in a long time, or even heard those two names in a very long time.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool, man. I didn't know that. Right on.
So what you see happening within the church with the Jesuits is a social masonry that they're establishing, right? And they're very much a socialistic, environmentalist type of nature religion that's developing, that's going to take over. And that's going to match up well with what they've done elsewhere around the world with all the other secret societies and Royal Masonic orders, is that they want to have a world government that's socialistic, right?
Yeah.
So that they can, get it back to only the elite and the oligarchs. So it's going to be national socialism on a globalist scale, where you've got oligarchs the bloodlines and the wealthy running all of the major companies. So you've got that upper class, and then you've got the priest class, which is all bloodlines as well, as we've talked about, like with the black nobility, like the Orsini and the Julian bloodlines that feed that. And then you're going to have a very, very small entrepreneurial merchant class, just as what you would have seen in the time of the French Revolution, right? You've got a very, very small merchant class, and then you've got the poor and the slaves.
They got money, but not like a lot of money. Like the people
Yeah.
that are above them have just tons of money. They have all of
Yeah.
it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they love it. That's what they
Yeah.
want. They want to hoard all the wealth, man. All these elite disgustos just want to hoard all the wealth. So yeah, it makes sense.
So we need to understand that where the Jesuits fit in that sort of hierarchical order. So they're one of the groups that were formed to replace the Knights Templar, and they're known as the New Templars, and they've got control of the banking. So you're going to be they've got all the banking that they can consolidate now, and have been, and that's why we start to see more of a global type of bank starting to happen.
Yeah.
And countries that fight against that amazingly get some sort of invasion, usually by the US.
So that's going to be like Libya. That's going to be like Afghanistan, Iraq, and also North Korea. All those countries that we happen to just have to be fighting all the time or invading, you know. So,
well, the ones that didn't have the ones who
Yeah.
didn't set up reserve banks, right?
Yeah. So Afghanistan is now on the Federal Bank Reserve. They're with the Federal Reserve now.
Yep.
Libya, they are now too. So all we have is North Korea now, and I think Iran. I think that's the two that they still have to conquer.
Yes.
I guess.
Yep.
We'll say it that way.
But they virtually have that in their control. And through the seminary schools within the Catholic Church, and through the Gnostics doing the same thing in Protestant churches and getting control of the seminary schools. They don't teach prehistory, they don't teach prophecy anymore. Yeah. And everything is becoming interpretive in the approach. And it's not a literal accuracy to the Bible. So they're well on their way to moving things along. So they're actually fulfilling what was written into the secret Constitution according to Rothchild, and I've got that document if people want it. It's kind of boring, but there's some interesting parts in there, like the New Babylon. So this is who the Jesuits are, and they are a polytheist cult.
I think that what should happen. What I think should happen is, before people go into seminary school, or people that have already graduated from seminary school, I think they need to take a course on the Jesuits to find out that what is happening, because they're being infiltrated. Certain words, key words that some pastors will use, they stay away from. They'll read the King James Version all the time, right? So they'll always stick to the King James Version in some cases. So you're like, all right, cool, they're on track. But like words like, which I know you're not a flat earther, but words like firmament, or words like if you read Job, it talks about in the earth. Like the devil's talking about going to and fro in the earth and on the earth, right? There's certain things they stay away from saying. They won't even say it because they're like, oh, that's like saying that, the devil's in the earth, right?
Yeah. Well, you don't have to be a proponent of flat earth to understand that there's a Sheol, there's a Hades, there's a underworld. That's all the same place in the earth. Could be in another dimension, but
could be
occupying the same space, right? Just as the abyss is probably in another dimension. There is a firmament. That's everything from the sun inwards. I mean, heaven is made up in the Bible of 3 categories. One is the firmament, which is created in if you're a renewal of the earth proponent, which would be created in the 6 days, and the firmament is called heaven. And also in the definition, it's all of the universe outside the firmament.
Yeah.
And then there's the heaven that God abides in with the loyal angels. So
is there water above the firmament?
Well, there probably is, because what you're doing is you're separating the waters, to create the firmament, which had collapsed.
Is the firmament hard, or do you think it's solid, or do you think it's just they're talking about the expanse?
Yeah, I think we're talking about the expanse, but it has some sort of dynamic to it.
Earth, Josh, You
I'm
always
just asking Gary.
stay away from it for one show, dude. It's like
Yeah,
the firmament.
No.
there is a firmament. Yeah.
I'm asking Gary because Gary is a really good dude. Because I respect his research, bro, and I know I've listened to so many things of Gary. Like literally, I've listened to so many.
It's like you can't even stay away.
Okay, all right.
So,
Let's go back to the Jesuits.
okay, back to the Jesuits.
So sorry, Gary.
So what do you? It's like you're trying to push. You're trying to push religion on Gary. Gary's
No,
like,
no. Gary,
don't talk.
my whole point was the Jesuit seminary school. Like, they are infiltrating it, and they're making it so that pastors stay away from certain things, and they only
They do.
Before that time, they taught, but Galileo taught that it wasn't that way. So Galileo kind of infiltrated science that way and made it. So who knows what the world? Who knows if the world is flat or not? Who knows about? We'll find out when we get there. Right
Gary
now,
is open to it. Gary said on tinfoil hat, I'm open to it, but I'm not. But I feels like it is a sphere. But anyways,
yeah, but it's a sphere, but it could be a flat sphere. Who knows?
I know. Who knows?
You gotta look into maps and get into stuff like that. But Gary, that was funny though.
All right. Let's get back to the Jesuits. We're coming down about 10 or 15 minutes before we have to close. So go ahead, guys. Sorry.
So the Jesuits are, as I say, they report up the ladder. They don't control all of the secret societies. That's one of the main things. They take their orders from the black nobility, Rex Deus, the original families, and they are doing, I think, a very good job of preparing for that complete takeover at the set time. So look for more doctrinal change and more allegory to continue to come out. I mean, he has replaced the conservative doctrinists that would be in charge, and so he's replaced that individual, I think about a year and a half or so ago, with another Jesuit. Also keep in mind, he's not Antichrist, this Pope. He's not even the false prophet. He may be the last Pope. Nostradamus was a Rosicrucian. And he predicted
prophecy.
Yeah, and he predicted the 3 Antichrists, one being Napoleon, the other one being Hitler, as it turns out, and then the real one that's going to come. He also talked about the last Pope was going to be the Black Pope. Now, I don't put my faith in them, but the Black Pope, everybody thought would be in that skin color. Well, the leader of the Jesuits is called the Black Pope. The leader of the Vatican is the White Pope. So now we have a Black Pope that is, he's a Jesuit, and he's the leader of the Vatican and has that sort of all consolidated. I think it's his job to prepare the way for Babylon and the false prophet to come along that will make the way of Antichrist.
He's like covering a lot of different boundaries, like he knows I think he knows the Jesuit secret sciences and all that, and then he knows both sides. So that's a great I think he is preparing the way. That's a pretty good way of looking at it. Definitely. People were thinking, oh, he's the Black Pope and White Pope mix, he's Antichrist, it's over. They're already ready to throw it up for the book, but
and if people understand prophecy well, then they'll understand that Antichrist, after the 10 kings have given him his power, they destroy Babylon. And then it becomes replaced with a religion of worshiping him and Satan, and a God, as Daniel 11 talks about, that their forefathers didn't know. And so Babylon is going to be removed, and Antichrist will make his home with the abomination as being the center of that religion. And so
installation,
so and as 2 Thessalonians 2:4 talks about. So we have to understand that Babylon is making the platform for Antichrist, so that Antichrist doesn't have to take the world by war.
Yes. He
right?
just comes in smooth, right?
He comes in smooth and takes
everybody-
credit
Yeah.
for the Gog War. So he has his own Armageddon that he comes in to offer peace and safety in his reign, which will probably last for a year or so.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's getting into the end times. And I know that your next book is going to be on a lot of that, right? A lot of prophecy, right?
Yes, just having so much fun in writing it. I'd have to be careful. I don't want it to be longer than the first book. I'm
I know I'm working on it.
I'm over 50 chapters already. So
Yeah. Hey, it's all good. I mean, you're just a big bundle of knowledge, man. We appreciate you so much. So anything else on the Jesuits? I mean, I'm totally loving this. We're getting into some prophecy. We're getting into them building the Babylon. Man, so interesting. So as we went through time, also, guys, just to let you guys know, they were expelled out of Germany. They were expelled out of France. They were expelled out of Japan. Like no Catholics at all could be in Japan at one time, where they said no, none of them. Do you believe that they were involved in a lot of, like, I mean, there's a lot of rumors that the Jesuits poisoned like James Monroe, poisoned, some of these presidents that, Alexander the First of Russia, I guess he felt he was poisoned. He felt like the Jesuits got him. We went through a whole Jesuit timeline before where we talked about a lot of this. Napoleon also, they say that maybe the Jesuits poisoned Napoleon as well. I mean, do you believe in any of that?
well, Napoleon wasn't bloodline.
Okay.
Right. So if so, he would always be exposed. But the trouble is the Jesuits are also part of working with secret societies and with spy agencies. They've got a lot of connections there. But if I was going to assign more of those types of things, I would assign it to the Knights of St. John.
Okay. So it's just part of the sect, but it's not the actual Jesuits, but it's probably part of the.
Yes, they have their own agenda that they're working with, and
Okay.
and the Knights of St. John are especially sort of referenced as helping to form the CIA, for example, right?
Okay.
So I think there's some involvement and there's some crossover there, because again, with all of these organizations, there's some rivalries, there's some tension here and there, and it's all you have to follow the power.
Okay. Knights of St. John is the Knights Hospitaller. Is that what that is?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah. Or the Knights of Malta, Knights of Rhodes. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, guys. So if you guys want to look up the Knights of Hospitaller, because I was going to ask you about that, but you're saying Knights of St. John. That's what you're.
Yes. And they're named, and they're actually created before the Templars in about 1040 as the Knights of St. John. And it's named after John the Baptist, but not as you understand John the Baptist from the Bible, although he's based on the Bible. But again, they draft Jesus, the Gnostics and the secret societies, as being an Essene,
an ascended master, right?
Yes, and and
like how Buddha would be, like the Buddha would be, or any of those, Muhammad probably. I don't know if they think of Muhammad that way, but just an ascended master. Okay.
Yeah, so they look at him as being polytheist, and the Christian version of John the Baptist is all fake history, as they would put it. And so he's a very, very important figure, as a prophet, and really very much admired by the Knights Templar as well. But but the Knights of St. John is formed in about 1040, and they take the white cross, right? And that's why it's important and understand their influence in Switzerland, where although the banking kind of ended up at, and why the white cross is on the Swiss flag.
You connected a lot of dots, man, on this show. Thank you so much, because I was going to ask you about the Knights Hospitaller. I don't know how to say it. I guess I'm probably butchering that. Is that how you say it? Hospitaller. I was going to ask you about that. You already talked about that, man. Knights of Malta. I was going to ask you about that. You already talked about that. You connected a lot of dots with Switzerland, the banking. That's interesting. Do you know like how many members were in the Jesuits at any given time? Like, do you know how many members? I don't know if you can even answer that, but how many members are actually involved? And are there some like warrior type figures in the Jesuits that are like they can actually go to battle and fight really well or shoot really well, or is it more of like all mentally
They're
uh
formed like a knight order, but they never really took up that aspect of it, right?
okay. Yeah.
And again, I think that's because it was sort of left in the realm of the Knights of St. John.
Okay.
And in terms of
They were a military order, right? Knights of St. John was a military
yep,
order.
absolutely,
Okay.
they were a military order, just as the Templars were. And
Okay.
you've got also at that time of those great knight orders, you got the Teutonic Order, right? It's just sort of part of that with the Black Cross. And so watch for that Maltese type of cross as one of those links. And there's another one, the Knights of the Sepulchre. And they all had specific functions for their creation, all created by bloodline Gnostics. But to be able to function with this veneer of credibility and secrecy underneath. So, and it's the same order that's in play today. So, the Jesuits are they've been involved with a lot of horrible things. There's no doubt about it. That's why they were disbanded. I mean, they were getting so powerful, they went rogue. But that's how powerful the bloodlines are. They got together and they said, no, this is out of control. And it's done.
That's why that's why some people have this, like, if you listen to some people that are like, I mean, they're like, they know a lot, like Jordan Maxwell, for example. I mean, he's got a pretty good in depth on the Jesuits, but that's what they'll say, stuff like the Jesuits did it, or the Jesuits run everything, or there's some people that always say like all roads lead back to Rome, which you could kind of say for now that we're thinking that there may be the Babylon, I guess they would
certainly a possibility, that they'll be Rome, but different than what everybody's kind of sort of anticipating though. So so what we need to do is continue to watch. I mean, the Vatican has control over the Medjugorje sites now. And they're fully operating out of there. And again, it's that natural sort of merger of that Mary apparition type of societies. And you're seeing more and more Mary apparitions around the world.
What's a Mary apparition? Can you explain that real quick before we
an apparition? It's where people say they see the Virgin Mary. Sometimes there's a large numbers of them sitting in the sky, and typically described as the woman is described in Revelation 12. So look at that as the dovetail for credibility over this, even though that takes the Bible totally out of context for what's being talked about in Revelation 12. But that is the exact descriptions that people provide for the apparition.
And it's just like if you go and try to talk to your relative, like your Aunt Mary, and a demon's talking to you in Aunt Mary's voice. Like what they're seeing is not Mary. They're seeing a demon, a goddess.
Thousands of people see this stuff, though, Josh. They're saying that thousands and thousands of people see these apparitions.
Which it could, because a demon could come at you, and they could do that. They could come in the form of.
That's why it's so powerful. That's why they, like he said, they got control of some things, because these apparitions that people started believing.
Something supernatural happens.
That's where you get that. That's where you get that. What is that? Our Lady of Guadalupe's type of stories.
That's exactly what it is. And or the
mythology,
the apparition of Joan of Arc that was led by, right? And it's all part of the same ongoing sort of deception. But also understand, though, that when this universal religion comes, this is a polytheist dualistic religion, also represented with the male god and the female goddess. So you're going to have that duality come back, and that's part of what I think the Mary apparition will do. And she's also, calling herself, the mother of God.
Queen of heaven.
So just as mother goddesses were mothers of gods, of offspring gods, and in some cases were mothers in polytheism of producing giants as well.
Here we go.
So when you see that imagery that was overlaid onto Catholicism of the Isis and the baby Horus,
Yes. Or
You start to,
Semiramis and Nimrod, basically,
yeah,
right? That's
yeah.
kind of the same thing, you know, with our Tammuz. Tammuz would be like and then, you know, the 40 days of Lent, or like, you know, all that stuff is all from, you could either say Isis Horus, or you could say Nimrod, Semiramis and Tammuz.
Because they're all the same religion, just
They need
different vernacular names. Yep.
Yeah, people that are Catholic, I mean, if you're listening right now, we're not trying to disrespect you. We're not saying you're not going to heaven. This is just stuff that you need to study. You need to study Nimrod and study all this stuff. Study about idols and everything, you know, and then look at your
study where your traditions came from. Study where your
traditions
came from. They're not biblical. They never were. And then you'll see that, okay, well, that's okay. Just go. Then
what I would encourage is, you know, for people of Catholicism, is be Berean, be a contrarian, verify everything that's being taught and talked about. And yeah, exactly. That's your protection, because you're not going to get accurate prehistory. You're not going to get prophecy, and you're going to see all sorts of other things that sort of pop up that, you know, doesn't make a lot of sense. And that also goes on in a lot of Protestant churches. So it's for all Christians to.
For sure. You see a Christmas tree up there at the, you know, at the altar with with the Christian also. And then on December 25th, they're saying it's Jesus's birthday. So, I mean, our pastors are doing the same thing, guys. So our pastors are doing the same thing. You know, I don't even go to church during Christmas now, because I mean, I love hearing about the birth of Jesus. Hey, but Jesus never said to celebrate his birthday or anything like that. So
just get out of the religion game. Totally. Just jump in religion. Totally. There's no such religion. And there is not what you want to be a part of. It's
and there's a reason that in the Revelation prophecies of John, that before the destruction of Babylon, people are instructed in that prophecy to come out of Babylon.
Yeah. Interesting stuff. So, all right, we're gonna end this because we're at 4:50 now, and my kids are crying upstairs. Oh, just let the audience know, I just got over COVID. Okay, guys, my wife is pregnant right now with COVID. We're just it's kind of a tough flu. Okay, guys, it's just, you know, you get body aches. You're sick, but please pray for my wife and my daughter. My daughter's, you know, she has a real bad cough right now. But I survived. Thank God. But we'll definitely want to end this in prayer. Anything else you want to say, Gary? First off, let me tell my audience something. Get this book. It's very thick. Okay. It's a lot of knowledge to gain, you know, and you can gain a lot of knowledge from listening to every podcast that Gary Wayne's been on, but please get this book, Genesis 6 Conspiracy. Okay, guys. Gary's taking his time out, been on our show 3 times. I should buy the book 3 times. That way he gets paid for that.
Yes. And so if you want to get a hold of me, go to my website, the Genesis6conspiracy.com. That's Genesis 6 with the number 6conspiracy.com. And on there, there's a contact the author. So if you want a document on the Jesuits, I've got that. Or maybe some of the other topics that I might talk about. If I got a document, I'll send it to you. I do it at no charge. You don't have to have bought my book. If you want to learn more about my book, I've got a generous excerpt of all 98 chapters. So you get a good feel for the book or not. I've got my new purchase pages set up, and they work way better. And so far, I'm not having issues with attacks on my website. It took a long time to get that thing straightened out. And I also have an overseas page if people want to get a signed copy. So you can buy it in Canada, you can buy it in the US, or you can buy it overseas. I got 3 separate pages there for it. You can also link over to Kindle to get the Kindle version, or you can link over to Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, or BarnesandNoble.com as well if you want to purchase it there. But if you want a signed copy, or if you want it customized on the signing, you just get a hold of me and do the purchase page, and it'll happen.
Perfect. And Jason, anything you want to say to the audience before we end?
Hey man, just keep up on your Bible, keep your faith up, stay healthy, everybody out there, and stay praying. You know, stay in prayer. Keep the prayer is very powerful at these times right now. So stay in prayer, and you know, there's a lot of people that are getting sick. A lot of people that have been that lost a lot of loved ones these last couple of months. So I just feel we should say a prayer for them too. You know, it's
okay. All right. Father
Amen.
God, in the name of Jesus, thank you so much for a clear connection. Thank you for giving us the knowledge from Gary and blessing him with all this knowledge to be able to teach us. Lord, I know that there's evil working behind the scenes, you know, the Jesuits, the Illuminati, but we know that you win in the end. And that's the thing that we love. You know, I just want to pray for people that have lost loved ones, people that are going through COVID and all this stuff. Guys, it is here, you know, but God is here for you guys. So please put your healing hand on all those family members that have lost loved ones. You know of one, Lord, that's in my life right now that just a friend of mine that just lost a loved one. Please put your healing hand over him. I don't want to say any names, but you know who it is, Lord. Please help him and his family. Thank you so much for everything, Lord, for everything you do for us. We really appreciate you in Jesus' holy name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you guys so much. Gary, once again, thank you for taking your time out and just breaking everything down. Like, you keep opening new doors for me every time you're on my podcast. And it's really awesome. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Terrific. Thank you for inviting me. And yeah, I think we talked about a few things today that people will be thinking about.
For sure. I'm going to be thinking about too. I'm going to re-listen to this so I can look up all these families you're talking about. Thank you very much, Gary. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you guys. You guys have one night, and good night, and thank you for everything.